It's not very often that we amateur photographers require text over an image, but it's bound to happen at some stage. Full disclosure, this is not my strong point in Photoshop. In fact, some people have written whole books on text and text effects. But I do have an interest in audiovisual, and that's led me to one or two little tips and tricks using text over an image. If we click on the text tool from the toolbox on the left, the bottom right corner, click and hold, we can see what's grouped together here. Now I think it's fairly safe for me to say you can ignore the bottom three versions here. Very rare for us to want to type vertically up the page. Most of the time we want the horizontal type tool. The other two down the bottom, they're easy to achieve in different ways. And when we click on the picture, we're given the invitation to type what text we want. Having done that, I need to make one or two selections with the text. So I'm going to click and drag to highlight that text. Then I've got all of the options along the top of the screen that I need. I've got as many fonts as I can shake a stick at. I'm going to keep mine fairly simple. I'm going to go to Calibri. I think that's going to suit our purposes. We can choose italic, bold, and the usual options we see with text. In this drop-down box, we get a series of preset sizes. So if I took this up to 300, you can see that's fairly large, but we're not limited to 300 because we can type in here any value we want. So if I wanted 350, I can hit the tick on the options bar, and there we have 350. Another way to make the text larger on screen is to click within it with the text tool, hold the control key, and we can just click and drag in this sort of fashion. If it's going to meet our needs, hit the tick. The other thing you'll find if you pick up the move tool is as you move your text around, those pink lines will help you to centralize it both in the center, horizontally and vertically. And remember, text is always created on its own layer, so it always remains live. Now, as you can see by the change on screen, I've reduced the size of my text. In fact, I changed it to Arial. I think it looks a little better to me. And I've moved it up to sit just over the bird's beak. We've still got it on a separate layer. Incidentally, if you did want to make a selection of this text, it's very easy to do. In fact, we need to do it here because what I'd like to do is to keep the live text up my sleeve, but I want to move forward with a little bit of masking later. So what I'm going to do is hold my control key and click the text layer. As soon as I do that, the entire text is selected. I'm going to turn this layer off. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the layers and create a new blank layer. And I'm going to flood that with color. You can see that red is the background color, so Control Backspace will flood that color. Control D will remove that selection. So what we've done here is to take our editable text, although we've still got it if we need it, but I have made it into just a simple image really. I can't pick up the text tool, click and drag and highlight this now because it's just a picture. It's just a series of pixels floating on a transparent background. But what we can do is to start to add some effects. We can adjust the color. So let's do that next. Let's go down to the effects at the bottom. I'm going to bring up the blending options in total, see if I can tuck them well away from the text we're viewing. So we have quite a number of options here. I'm going to go straight to the color overlay. I'm going to tick the box and you can see the color of the text birds changes instantly. Now I'm going to just click on the little panel to the right and the options open up. So what I could do here is to click on this panel to change the color, and I've got the color picker to do it. But I can also click and sample into the picture. So if I want to sample something from within the image, And generally that can often work pretty well. I can do that. Let's have a look at one or two other options here. Now there's far too many here for me to go through them all. I'm just going to go through the ones that I tend to use quite often. First of all, we have the bevel and emboss. When I click that and open up the values for that, you can see I can adjust the size. If you look at the text I've got on screen, it's got a little bit of a depth to it now. We can go too far with this, it looks a bit cartoon-like, but if you keep it low, it can look quite attractive. We're all going to pick something slightly different. We've also got the opportunity to add texture in here, but I'm going to move on to the stroke, which is another one I use quite a bit, and I'll highlight the parameters. Here you can see the outline is in black, and the outline is 5 pixels, and it's on the outside of the text. We get the opportunity to put it on the inside. We get the opportunity to change it to any color we wish. So we need to pick something which we feel is appropriate. And finally, I suppose the only other one that I use quite a bit is the drop shadow. I think most people are familiar with this, but I don't want to keep it here because I've got something else up my sleeve. But we can decide the angle of the drop shadow and the depth or the distance, the spread and the size. But on this occasion, I'm going to turn that off. And in fact, I'll go back to my stroke and return it to black because I think black looks pretty good around there. And in fact, even on the outside, let me change that. Sorry about that. I've got to hit the color before I try to change the position. Put it on the outside and click OK. Now the good thing about what I've done here is every single thing here is live. And what I mean by that is I can change my mind at any time. So if I wanted to go back to my color overlay, I can pick up this color, and if I wanted to pick something different from within the image or from the color picker, I can do that quickly and easily. Now what I'd like to do here is to add a layer mask onto my bird's text here. So I can create the impression that the bird is actually looking over the top of the text. But I have a problem because I've added all of these effects. Let me demonstrate the problem and then we'll fix it. If I go down to my mask option and create my mask, I'm going to go to select black as my foreground color. I'm going to select brush and I'm going to push the flow rate up just for this little demonstration. And I'll bring the image up a little bit. Because what I'd like to do here is to mask that straight edge of the B away so the bird can be seen in front of the letter. But when I do that, things seem to go a little wrong. And it's because we've got stroke commands here and it's trying to add a stroke around what I'm masking. So Control Z will undo that mask, but what I need to do is I need to rasterize these. Now normally we would do that probably before we even added the mask. So just to the right of the thumbnail, right click, and I'm going to rasterize the layer styles. Now you can see they're now applied to my text, so I've lost the ability to change them. So we do this when we're ready, and it's why we keep a couple of other layers up our sleeve sometimes for creative reasons. But now when I add the mask, and if I get this large on screen, and I drop my flow rate down so I can work in a nice gentle way, but basically I can now, in fact, if I push it up to its maximum, I can take most of this away so I can reveal where the edge is that I've got to work to. Then I can go and switch to white. Now I can drop my flow rate down up here. I'm going to hit the number 1 key to drop it down to 10%. Drop my brush down and I can carefully now do a little bit of masking along there. In fact, I quite like to leave that a little proud because it looks like a little drop shadow from the bird, doesn't it? But that's going to be a personal choice. And we've got the same at the bottom here. Now you can see doing this quick for a demo, I've gone over the edge there, but it doesn't matter. We can switch around to black again and make these repairs And when I hit Control 0, you can see the effect we've created. Now I've just noticed my video is rapidly approaching 10 minutes, and you can see how time runs away with us when we start talking about text effects. But I do need to just show you one or two other things. With this image, if we take a little bit of time, you can see exactly what we can do. We can tuck the text over, round, or even have parts of the image growing through the letters. It just takes a little bit of time, but nowhere near as long as you may think. Now with the changing of the image on screen, I've done exactly the same as before. Just placed some text over the top of the clouds. I've added a stroke line in black. I've adjusted the colour and sampled a colour from within the image itself, but on this occasion I have added a drop shadow. One of the other options we have is to be able to warp the text from this option at the top of the screen. Now we can select from the styles, and there's quite a few of those. So let's pick up arc. There you can see what it does, and we get the parameters here to be able to change it in a variety of ways. So I can have the text big on the left and smaller on the right. Now, should I choose that, my text still remains live. Not only can I click and drag to highlight it, I could decide that I don't want the word text there, and I just want the word Photoshop. I could click and highlight and decide that I want that to be bigger, and all of those settings that I previously applied, the effects and also the warping, is in place, and I can move it around. But of course at any time I can go back to the warp options and I can choose something else or none, and all the while the text remains live. And we've got quite a few here to choose from. Let's try the flag. That looks pretty good, but I can make it a bit deeper if I want, and again I can change it in a variety of ways. Don't want to go too far so we can't read the text we're applying, but you get the idea. Now I really must bring this video to a close, and as I've said, we could write an entire book on text and text effects in Photoshop, and I'm sure many people have. But there are times, you know, when the most simple is also the most stylish. I'll see you next time.